What has the quiet kid at school done that surprised you? Stopped being the quiet kid. He went from never speaking to anyone to one of the most popular kids, although he was not a douche ringleader type either. I was the quiet kid, kept to myself, did art and wrote in my journal instead of socialized. After I graduated, I took a solo road trip in my VW bug, worked at a ski resort for a winter so I could snowboard, then backpacked Europe for 3 months at the age of 21. I gave my art teacher an update about my life and she later told me she had to go look my name up in the yearbook because I was nothing like I had been in high school. I had a little boy enter my class during the year who always acted ostentatiously good. If the rest of the class was going to pot, he'd sit quietly with his hands folded and make sure that I noticed him. Note, I never asked the kids to do that. It's like something from olden times. I did smile and thank him quietly for being so helpful, but never insisted on it or mentioned it to the others. One day he didn't come to school. Midway through the day I got a phone call from the nurse saying that this sweet little boy had been admitted to a children's inpatient psychiatric facility, and would I please get his books and schoolwork organized to send to the teachers there. Apparently he had had some sort of an episode at home. I was shocked as I readied his work, because he had always been so well behaved in school. I think that perhaps he had a bizarre home life, and school was his place to be safe and normal. After his stay in the facility, the little boy came back to school and resumed his pattern of responsible behavior. I sometimes wonder whatever happened to him. I was the quiet kid. I surprised myself when this girl who'd been bullying me threw rocks at my back and legs, and I stood up and threw one back. It literally hit her in the center of her forehead. I kid you not, I didn't mean to do that, but I did not feel bad. One of the quiet kids in my English class got up in the middle of class and left for like 15 minutes, before coming back with around 40 bags of chips. He went to all the vending machines in the school and cleaned them out on chips. When someone asked him why, all he said was, "I'm kinda hungry." A really nice but insanely quiet kid I went to school with and had many classes with ended up being on the Dallas Mavericks the last few years before being released recently. Larry Card, the only African American student in my high school class in liberal KS class of 1965, became a federal judge. The quiet kid surprised me alright. He dealt with his depression head on, stopped smoking weed, he applied himself, got a job and moved out of a toxic home. He started working out and he traveled more. He also made more of an effort with women, and over the past few years he had 2 beautiful girlfriends. One dumped him and the other was dumped by him. Both beautiful women inside and out, and they were great experiences for him to mature and develop as a person. He has his ups and downs. The last while mostly downs, but he's trying hard to be kinder to himself and be grateful for where he is now compared to before. Yep. I was the quiet kid. I was the quiet kid, and I threw a shoe at a teacher. She had it coming though. She knew I suffered from autism, and specifically seated me next to people I had told her annoyed me and bullied me. Said this in a different subreddit, but was the quiet kid. Got picked on by the white kids for having a bad accent plus lisp. It was my first year speaking English and going to an English speaking American school. Ended up getting followed into the restroom and harassed by stereotypes and slurs. He has a small dick, small eyes, etc. So I turned around and whipped it out on them. Definitely surprised everybody. I am the quiet kid. People would be surprised if they knew this, but a lot of trouble mysteriously caused in the classroom was by me, the low-key troublemaker. Once, in middle school, we had to prep for a science test, and the teacher kept telling us to study because of how difficult it would be. People who've already took the test warned us about it. When it got to my science period, the last science period of that day, after lunch, the test mysteriously disappeared with no copies left. The teacher swore that they had it, but it was nowhere to be found. The copies of the test in her computer was also completely lost and gone. We ended taking a much easier science quiz she found on the same topic, and almost everyone that period aced it. Who stole all of the test copies and went on her computer to delete the file? Me. That story was a sample from the things I do, but that was by far the riskiest thing I've done to protect my grade, because I could have got suspended if I was caught or something. How about a happy story? There was this kid I saw in my middle school and high school. Very creepy looking. Very thin for his age, Caucasian, unkempt oily hair, had a pedo mustache in HS, and would twitch fidget all the time. People didn't want anything to do with him because he was always talking to himself with quiet unidentifiable mutterings. Well, fast forward some years to the senior high school talent show. He walks on stage and busts out the best rapping I've ever heard in my life. Everyone was just blown away. My last memory of him in HS was seeing him with 2 girls. From creep for nearly all of your schooling to popular during the last 2 weeks of public school was amazing. I hope he's gone on to do great things. I used to be one of the quiet kids and my only friend was a fellow quiet kid. They started a rumor that I self-harm and within hours teachers were checking my arms to see if it was true. They got really popular after that and I fell into a pit of despair because people bullied me even more for it. She never talked to anyone. One day, my school went bowling and my principal said if anyone could hit a 7-10 split, he'd take us all out to ice cream. After we finished bowling he asked if anyone hit a 7-10 split and I teased and shouted that this girl had, and out of nowhere, she talked for the first time and said she had. We got ice cream because the first time the silent kid ever talked in school. She lied. Got a decent job, lost weight, started handling his depression, planning on college now, is currently spending his life with the woman of his dreams, and is currently on Reddit. Luckily, for me, I was the quiet kid at my school. LOL. Suddenly started being really chatty during senior year. Turns out he had a great sense of humor and could roast the shit out of the rest of us because he had spent the previous 2 years quietly observing. It was so awesome to see him come out of his shell. I don't know what he's up to now, but I know his home life was pretty rough. I really hope he's doing well. I remember a fairly quiet and serious kid wrote that had sexual implications on the whiteboard during class. Our teacher was doing some sentence diagram crap, and he was called. His sentence, which he accurately diagrammed, was he and she do things in bed at night. We all got a kick out of that. I was the quiet kid. I made a mistake in my last year of school. I am not proud of this. To cut it short, I slept with one of my mate's girlfriends and it spread around the school like wildfire. Half of them who never knew I existed treated me like shit. The other half thought I was the coolest kid in school. I went overnight from being the most unpopular kid in school to the one everybody talked about. None of this was good. I regretted my actions for years. The old friend was nice enough to forgive me and I learned from my mistakes. I'll never be 16 again. For better and for worse. We were having a conversation about what we did at the weekend, and most of us spoke about going to the park. The quiet kid suddenly said, "All your parents are boring." Then a classmate spoke up and said, "At least we have parents." This kid's parents died not long before. He sat quietly for a second, then exploded in a fit of rage. He went apeshit, threw a chair at the kid who taunted him. His desk went over and he punched one other kid. Eventually 2 teachers had to hold him down as he screamed and spat. He never came back after that. The quiet kid became a millionaire by high school and later bought me an 80k Mercedes-Benz for being a good friend to him and supporting him throughout. He made all of his money in investing in stocks and real estate. He stood up to the teacher. Confused face. The quiet kid needed something from the talkative kid, so he tapped his shoulder. But the talkative kid made a big deal out of it and said to the teacher loudly, "He hit me." And the teacher told the quiet kid to leave the class and sit outside, which most of us would have listened to after a few buts. And I didn't, but this kid had a full-on 5-minute long argument with the math teacher explaining that the talkative kid was fussing for no reason and that he should be the one getting a punishment for being overdramatic, and not him. In the end, the quiet kid won, and the talkative kid was sent to be seated away from the quiet kid, who frankly, gained a lot of respect from the class after confronting the teacher like that. I was the quiet kid who watched a ton of TV. Every once in a while, I would be in a situation where I had the perfect comeback or one-liner and everyone would laugh and tell others what I had said. Glorious moments in a sea of anxiety and self-hatred. In 6th grade I sat next to a quiet girl in my Italian class. I took a liking to her because she was the only person who would put up with me. 2 girls sitting near us started harassing me. I didn't even say anything to them, but they were just being really cruel because they thought I was annoying. The quiet girl didn't hesitate to stick up for me and tell them to leave me alone. I was so surprised that she did that. She was so shy and gentle and unassuming, but she immediately defended me from these really mean girls. I was so grateful for the fact that she actually cared about me enough to put herself in a scary situation just so that I wouldn't be alone. She's now one of my best friends 7 years later. The whole fucking school got shocked that she actually is dating the popular guy. Was part of a semi-famous boy band. Honestly, scares me still to this day. Ready for this story? Distraught face. When I was in 5th grade there was a boy, we'll call him Danny, that rarely said anything. He was always looking down, slumped over. Me being the person I am, befriended him as well as he would allow. He would come into class with bruises and be sad all the time. Danny told me his dad hit him and his mom sometimes. I remember telling my mom when I would come home from school and she just ignored it, telling me it's not our business. Days and weeks went on and one day he came in, after showing much more bruises and markings on his body, and told me he was going to kill his dad, in the most serious sad voice. Once again I told my mom what he said and she brushed it off. Next day in school Danny was absent. He was never absent. Come to find out he shot his dad, killing him for the abuse. Crazy, right? I'll never forget that. The quiet ones will surprise you. By the way, this wasn't just a few week friendship. This was within a school year. I just told the main points of the story. My dad said the quiet kid at his school was also awkward, lanky, and didn't get paid a whole lot of attention to. Well, she turned out to be Michelle Pfeiffer. He told the story many times to us growing up and said it's important to be kind to everyone for many other reasons, including one being you just never know who they'll turn out to be one day. I was that quiet kid. I think I got voted to be closet partier in my yearbook. Then after graduation, I pulled out a pipe stuffed with weed at a party. Talk about shock and awe. People looked at me differently after that. She fucked her cousin and got pregnant and dropped out of school. Edit. Grammar. I was the quiet kid. Had horrible social anxiety. Not many friends. I'm happy to say that I'm in a much better place mentally now. I still have some issues to overcome, but I'm proud of how far I've come from the quiet kid in the corner.